What's up, Earth Rockers? It's your boy Shovitar, back again for my last Portrait of Ruin run, the last run that I will be uploading. If you guys are really excited to see old axe armor mode gameplay, I apologize, that's not going to happen. Ditto with Sisters mode. I'm only interested in playing the actual game. So as I mentioned in my previous Richter mode videos, Richter hard mode, I cannot do what I did in my other videos, which was commit to only playing as one character. In hard mode, you need Richter and Maria both. And I'm also going to be stating up front that this is, also like my previous Richter mode videos, not 100%, not like a continuous run. This is, I did use save states. This is segmented. It's in 3 parts. There's the start of the game to, I think, the Stella Loretta fight, then the Stella Loretta fight to through the 4th floor of the Nest of Evil, and then the 5th floor of the Nest of Evil through to Bronner and Dracula. So, and also as before, I'm gonna save my list of excuses until I get to the point where the cuts happen. I've done a lot of talking about this game, and I'm kind of getting the feeling that I'm repeating myself a lot, so I'm going to try to have a little bit... I'm going to try to do things a little bit differently this time. I'm going to try to go more, like, specifically play-by-play. So the City of Haze on Richter hard mode is actually much easier than it is in Jonathan and Charlotte mode, and that's kind of always the conundrum with these alternate modes, is... On the one hand, the characters themselves are often much stronger than the main mode characters. And when I say modes like this, I mean like alternate modes like Richter mode, or MaxLv50 mode, or Richter mode again in this game, or Julius mode, is that the characters themselves are often much stronger, but the trade-off is that you don't have... Essentially, the relevant trade-off is that you don't have access to healing items. So... any damage you take is damage you take, and you can't do anything about that. What makes the City of Haze so much easier on Richter mode is simply the simple fact that Richter's whip does holy damage, which can be a problem at other points in the run, but at this point is extremely important because it means he can kill the death masks really fast, and the death masks are kind of like... And the other thing that makes Richter mode in general a lot easier, frankly, than the base game, well, to a certain point, is that, as you can see here, Richter is very good at just skipping things that he doesn't want to deal with. Richter can run really fast. He runs much faster than Jonathan does, even with the winged boots, which means he can run past a lot of enemies, and then for enemies that he can't run past, he can often just jump over. So in the main levels, Richter mode is much easier than the base game. But in the boss fights, obviously, you can't skip the boss fights, you can't run past them, you can't jump over them, you have to actually fight them. So that's when the lack of healing items becomes relevant. And something that I said in when I was talking about the DS trilogy, Harmony and Aria mostly, is that the presence of healing items in these games creates an issue with the difficulty. Where the reason I went for no healing item runs in Harmony and Aria is because I felt as if with healing items the game would be too easy. And I think the oppressive difficulty of the hard modes in Portrait of Ruin, and also to a certain extent in Order of Ecclesia, is sort of an attempt to make a game that's so hard that it actually is still tough even if you are running around with 9 high potions in your inventory. So I bring all this up to say that when you take the healing items out of the equation, and now you're playing as just a regular character in, or I should say a regular classic Castlevania style, no RPG inventory character in this oppressive difficulty, now it's like really, really balls to the wall. You gotta play really well. And you really, and really you gotta learn the boss fights. And I think that's why these modes appeal to me, is because I really love boss fights. Like I'm not I'm always much more stoked to fight a giant boss than I am to go walk through a room with a bunch of bats in it. And those are kind of like the two kinds of difficulty spikes the Castlevania games often present. So the fact that there's so much more of an emphasis on learning the boss fights and getting good at the boss fights is something I appreciate. And here I'm swapping to Maria for, speaking of boss fights, what is basically Maria's main job in Richter mode, which is killing bosses. Because Richter can run super fast, he can super jump, the whip has a long range, and does enough damage to kill most regular enemies at a pretty brisk pace. Maria is slower, but does way more damage than Richter, and the fact that, well, in certain circumstances, and the fact that she does more damage is only really relevant in the boss fights because, as I said, Richter's damage is plenty good enough for most regular enemies. So the dynamic that the game is encouraging, essentially, is you play as Richter for most of the time, but then you swap to Maria for boss fights, and that's what I'm going to be doing most of the run. Due to... I'm trying to think if there are any bosses... Well, I fight the final boss with Richter, but other than that, most bosses I think I'm gonna fight with Maria. Maria also has an interesting tool that I think I'm going to use a little bit in this run, which is Maria... I say you don't have access to healing items. In Richter mode, you have access to a small amount of self-healing, because Maria can... There's an attack that Maria can use. That fucking... I knew that was going to happen. Every time I walk into this hallway on hard mode, zombies fucking come out from under the floor and hit me. And you can see also an interesting thing that you can do here in Richter mode, which is if you swap to another character, you can prevent taking damage from poison, and also if I happen to get cursed, I can swap to another character to start regenerating my my MP. And the thing about Richter is that Richter moves so fast that it's actually a lot easier to accidentally like run into things than it is in if you're playing as Maria or in the base game. And I think I would probably have run into those zombies anyway, because the zombies have a very bad habit of just kind of like coming out of the ground right when you don't expect them to. But yeah, the fact that Richter has access to like holy damage, holy whip damage, there are very, very few enemies outside of bosses who the combination of holy whip damage won't do sufficient damage to kill very fast. That right there. Another thing about Richter is that Richter's actually fast enough to avoid a lot of things that are extremely problematic and dangerous if you're trying to play hard mode in the base game. For example, what's going to come up pretty soon here is a room full of bats, and trying to dodge the bats on Jonathan or Charlotte if you're playing on a fresh file and you don't have the winged boots is extremely difficult. But the thing is that Richter moves so fast that he could just avoid them. Like by the time they get to him, he's not there anymore. I should also mention that Richter has a lot of sub-weapons. I think that the sub-weapons in Richter mode are balanced fairly well. The thing about Richter is that Richter's whip has a very long range. It's longer range than the Jonathan's whip. If you ever fought Richter in Portrait of Ruin, if you did like the whip's memory fight, and you thought like, wow, that whip has a fucking long-ass range. Well, he has the same whip here and has the same range. Which does leave the sub-weapons in kind of an awkward position where something that I said about Super Castlevania 4 25 years ago when I made videos about Super Castlevania 4 was that 8-directional whipping was an interesting innovation that actually the Castlevania team wanted to put in the game back in Dracula's Curse, but they couldn't implement it ultimately. But one of the consequences of 8-directional whipping was that it rendered a lot of the sub-weapons essentially irrelevant, because the way that classic Castlevania is balanced is the idea is that the sub-weapons give you, a range of attack that you otherwise wouldn't have access to. But what 8-directional whipping does, if you can like jump and like whip diagonally whenever you want, is it renders certain sub-weapons like the axe, for example, which is supposed to be able to let you do... yeah, that room back there, by the way, that I just like Supermaned through is like one of the fucking hardest rooms in the game on hard mode. But as you can see, Richter trivializes it, which is one reason why I'm totally fine with doing like a non New Game Plus hard mode run for Richter mode, because he has the tools basically. Jonathan doesn't, and the only reason I like use save states, and the only reason it's like segmented the way that it is because of one particular part in the late game. And if you've watched my videos and heard me bitch about this already, you know what I'm talking about. But in case you don't, I'll save my comments for the time. Sorry, I'm balancing 5 different points I'm trying to make on my head at the same time. Super Castlevania 4, yeah. Sub-weapons are supposed to give you, like, access to avenues, to ranges of attack that you otherwise wouldn't have. 8-directional whipping essentially removes that advantage. And with Richter, I don't know necessarily if the whip seems like it honestly is, like, almost as long range as the cross is. Like, I don't think I ever really found... No, I used the cross on a couple of boss fights, but mostly it's the holy water, because what sub-weapons do for Richter is similar to what they do for Julius in Julius mode in Dawn of Sorrow, which is that instead of being there to give him extra coverage, because he moves so fast, he can double jump and whip in the air, he doesn't really necessarily need... There are a couple of situations where the axe is useful in Richter mode, but like generally the purpose of sub-weapons is to let him do more damage, like right there. Whereas in classic Castlevania, the sub-weapons did more damage, but they had more utility than that. So Richter's whip is good against regular enemies, but if he wants to fight anything that's like particularly bulky or resistant to holy damage, for example, then he will need to use the axe sub-weapon. And that's something that happens a lot in my Richter only run. I use the axe on some bosses that are resistant to holy. Probably tedious and unexciting footage, but I was committed, so I just did it. But most regular enemies, I can't think of any regular enemies actually that are resistant. No, there's one enemy that's resistant to holy damage. The witches in the Is that the first hit of damage I've taken? Have I taken any damage yet before that? I actually can't remember. Maybe I did. Yeah, I did, because the zombie walked on me, or the zombie like came up out of the fucking floor and ambushed me. So yes, I had taken damage. Sorry, but that should say something, that like Richter is just so good at dealing with the base game that regular enemies are very rarely going to present an issue. It's really, as I said before, it's really all about the boss fights. And making sure you have those down, because on normal mode, the boss fights do a lot of damage. On hard mode, they do even more damage, and the margin for error is, whatever margin for error you might have had in the base game by just, like, opening your inventory and chucking a bunch of potions is gone, so now you have to actually know what you're doing. And in normal mode, I'm fairly sure I just go right to the boss, but the reason I'm not doing that here is because Richter mode has limited RPG elements. It has a level up system, as you can see, but Richter and Maria also do get a benefit from energy tanks and MP max MP increases. So that means that, and because you have no healing items, your health is your only source of if you do want a margin for error, the only way to attain that margin is by having more health. So for that reason, I'm going out of my way here through the Nation of Fools to get some energy tanks, and then instead of just skipping to the boss. The reason I'm sitting over here dancing is because there's a Spittlebone breathing fire on one of these walls, and in hard mode they breathe fire from so far away that you can't like really even approach them. You just have to know where they are ahead of time and just remember, and then stand far enough out of the range that they don't hit you, and then kill them. This was a fucking dumb decision. I should not be attacking this guy with the axe, because that blob there has a really bad habit of just like jumping on top of you from that angle. What's nice about Maria is that the Maria's dragon is the best attack in the game, which is a carryover from Rondo, where it was also the best attack in the game, because it moves super fast, it covers a huge amount of ground, it's very like it's very large. The dragon itself is just very big, so you're not likely to miss whatever it is you're shooting at. And it does a lot of damage, and a lot of magic damage specifically, which is ice damage to be really, really particular, which is important because a lot of enemies have bad resistance. A lot of enemies take more damage from magic than they do from physical attacks, and some enemies, like the blobs, are I believe, specifically weak to ice. So enemies that are very tricky to deal with, like the Spittlebones or the blobs here and in the Burnt Paradise, Maria's dragon just clears them out. I think I was thinking about going back to the save station there to heal after taking that hit, but I was just like, ah, fuck it, whatever. Because this decision was actually kind of risky to go for these energy tanks, because although it's actually risky both ways, because what I do in my normal mode video, I'm fairly sure, is I take a direct path up to the middle of the stage to basically skip the first half of, because you have to go up either the left or the right path to get to the top of the level to get to the boss. But if you have access to Richter's super jump from the start, you can go up a there's a path you can take to the middle of the level where the boss is. You can't fight the boss yet, but you can go to the middle of the level, then go straight to the middle point of either the left or the right path. And that's what I do on normal mode. But the thing about that is that involves jumping past some swinging blades, and one of the many differences in hard mode is that enemies do more damage, but environmental hazards also do way more damage. So, and trying to jump past swinging blades that are above you is a little bit risky. In fact, even trying to fall past swinging blades right here, which is what you're supposed to do, is a little risky. And here is actually where I died the most in my attempts of this. Because I did use save states, but I didn't use them like... It wasn't like aggressive. There were just like one or two set points where I was using them. So if I died in the Nation of Fools, I would have to go back to the start, which is what happened. So going for energy tanks, going through any part of the Nation of Fools is risky because there's environmental hazards, there's Spittlebones, there's all sorts of shit. But what hit me? I took damage somehow. I didn't even see it happen. I just noticed that my health was low. What the fuck hit me? The boss probably bumped me. And here, I could be using Maria more aggressively. I probably should be. Because Maria, one of the many useful properties of Maria is that she regains MP, I think, 5 times faster than Richter does. Which is going to make her... which means that if you're not doing anything, if you're just sitting around waiting, which that is the most ridiculous shit. I want you guys to fucking go back and watch that. My foot goes right through the platform. Maria's shoe goes right fucking through it. It's ridiculous. This is like a problem I only have in this room with these platforms, and I don't know what it is. For some fucking reason, they're super picky about how high above them you have to be in order to actually be landing on them. I feel like I feel like this is the only place in the whole game where I have that problem. So I don't know if it has something to do with the way the platforms are the way they look compared to what they're actually covering. This was also pretty fucking risky. Because the reason I'm going this way instead of just going back to the painting is because there's an energy tank over here. But getting to the energy tank means killing 2 cloaked knights, both going there and coming back. And again, it's a place where the ice dragon is really, really useful, because the cloaked knights, they're just fuckers. They just sit off of the fucking screen and just throw their swords at you. And the dragon goes really fast, covers a bunch of ground, and will just hit them even when they're fucking hiding off the screen, because it goes so fast. So basically what I can do with Maria, with these guys, that I couldn't do with any other characters, I can outrange them. I can just sit far enough away that when they throw their swords at me, I actually have time to react, and then I can just hit them at a distance and basically do to them what they do to me. And here, I actually made a mistake here, which is that I should have gotten the teleport point that's right next to the painting that goes into the Nation of Fools, but I forgot to. And the reason I wanted the teleport point was so that I could use the teleport point next to the Legion boss room to just teleport back down to this part of the level and leave instead of having to fall down past those swinging blades, because I consider any interaction with those swinging blades to be a risk. Even if it's just falling down them, which is what you're supposed to do, even if it's something that I've done a million times before, it can just always go wrong, and it's especially the case because Richter moves so fast, moves faster than I'm necessarily accustomed to, so it can be easy to just, like, not be in the spot where you think you're going to be. And I actually forget how much damage they do to Richter. I don't know if because I went down there with 181, I don't know if they would have killed me if they'd hit me, but like, they might have, honestly. They do so much fucking damage, it's ridiculous. Although the fire wheel only did 110, and I'm fairly sure the fire wheel hits resistance, and I know Richter's resistance is lower than Maria's, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it would only do like 90 something or 80 something. But that's pretty much how much damage they do, and that's so fucking dumb. Although, again, that is kind of a consequence of Richter's movement speed. And this was also fucking really risky. I think I'm deciding whether or not to go for, because there's a magic expansion down there, but in order to get to it, I have to go through 2 of these spittle bones, and then 4, who, as you can see, just fucking attack you from off the screen. And then 4 bone-throwing skeletons, and I think the skeletons throw their bones at you, like, more quickly than they do in, See, this is what's so obnoxious. Like, he can hit me from off the screen, but, like, okay. But as soon as my axe goes off the screen, it fucking disappears. And this was so fucking close. Because I didn't think they would start throwing their shit at me before they could see me. But they can see me before I can see them, basically. So they already were ready to go and throw their bones at me before I even, like, knew they existed. This was really fucking scary, too, because I literally don't know what's going on. I don't know if he just finished breathing. I don't know if he's about to breathe. No, actually I do, because I can hear it. You can actually kind of hear him do the fire breath. So that last kill wasn't as risky as it looked, but still, like, fucking hell. And I don't really know if that was necessarily... No, it was worth it. I know it was worth it. Because of the Nest of Evil, because something that happens in the Nest of Evil, which I'm going to talk about when we get to it. MP, because like MP expansions, it's like not as imperative to get them as it is with energy tanks, because with energy tanks, actually energy tanks are the whole reason I go into the caverns. I totally forgot about this when I went into the caverns, because I skipped the caverns in my normal mode runs, and the reason that I do that is because the caverns, as you perhaps saw, are really risky. Like, that's where I died a lot on my early attempts at this. Excuse me. And the only reason, and because Richter has access to movement tools, which means that he doesn't need... He can get to where the caverns take you from the start of the game. So there's no reason to do it in terms of progression. Like, you don't have to do it. The only reason you'd go in there is for energy, the fact that there's one energy tank and there's one magic expansion. And it just occurred to me that should I explain what an energy tank is? I guess I don't know who watches these. So energy tank is something from Metroid, where it's an item that you pick it up and it restores all your health and it increases your max health. And I played Metroid before I ever played any Castlevania games, so I just think of them as energy tanks, and that's just what I call them. So I'm sorry if that bothers you, but it's habit at this point. This boss, I actually think I could be killing it faster with Maria. But the thing is that the process of getting him out of the cauldron is like... Because what I want him to do is exactly what I'm making him do, which is get him out of the cauldron facing away from me. And Richter is really good at that, because he can throw an axe to hit the left edge of the cauldron, to like bait him into looking over in that direction. Maria does more damage to him because he's weak to ice and fire, but he's also kind of a bitch, where if you attack parts of his body that aren't his skull face where he can take damage, then sometimes he just hides his face and like goes back into the cauldron and like isn't vulnerable for as long as he should be. So and it's hard for Maria to hit just his face, because the red birds that do fire damage will go like up through his body, and the dragon is so big that it will also like hit parts of his body. And I also think I just didn't really want to swap characters over and over again. And that's the thing about Portrait of Ruin, is that the whole point of Portrait of Ruin is to character swap, but like in all of my runs I just like deliberately ignored that mechanic, which I don't know. It wouldn't make the parts of Portrait of Ruin that are problematic are not really improved by character swapping. It's cool that they put it in, but... Oh, this is so good. Yeah, so Richter, the fact that Richter has a super jump from the start means that he can skip almost all of the Sandy Grave and just go right to the boss, which is what's happening here. I invite you also, by the way, to tell me what I should have done to fight that Hunchback and avoid getting hit by it. I don't know. This is also where the dragon is fucking super useful, because it just kills whatever you point it at. Yeah, those skull turrets were things that I had a really big problem with during my initial playthroughs, and I was trying to like basically only play Jonathan. It's because they're weak to ice, and that's what Maria has. And here I actually don't have to go this way. Or where am I going? What am I doing? Oh, I'm going to a save station to heal. Okay, that's what's going on. I was confused for a second there, because oh, I know why. It's because usually when you fight the boss in the Sandy Grave, you come into the boss room from the right, and from the right there is a save station right before the boss. But I'm gonna come into it from the left, because one of the things that Richter mode does is it gets rid of all of the pushable blocks that would impede your progress in the main game. Which means that I can just jump up here and get to her from the left, but the consequence of that is that there's no save station right before the boss, so if I take any damage on the way there, I go into the boss with that damage. Not that this boss is super scary, but there's no reason to go into it with like half HP if I can find a way to go into it with full HP. And the reason I'm fighting her on Maria is because her temptation attack doesn't do anything to ladies. Where am I going? Oh right, there's a teleport down here. That fucking shit with the archer. There we go. Richter having access to the super jump from the start opens up some interesting routing. I think this was also a mistake where I wanted to get a teleport point. Or no, I think I went back and forth on this, because there's a teleport point that I want to get to go to the Tower of Death now. And I think I went back and forth between, like, do I go down to the Sandy Grave, get the teleport point, go back up to get the teleport point to the Tower of the Death, then come back down and do the Sandy Grave? Because if I did that, then maybe I would be higher level to get it done slightly faster, but I think I ultimately decided, like, fuck it. I'm here, I'm at the Sandy Grave, I might as well just do it. Because it doesn't really matter. The Sandy Grave is a problem if I'm playing only as Richter, because if you're playing only as Richter, then you can't, the only good damage you can do to Cleopatra is with the axe, which slows down the pace of the fight considerably and makes it a lot more dangerous, but if I'm playing the game normally and I can just kill her with Maria, then it really doesn't matter. But that's why I stopped. That's why I like went into the teleport point and I seemed confused for a second, because I was confused, because I I had changed up the route and kind of forgot that I did it. Oh, I can't believe I didn't mention this before. So those little gremlins with the fire spoons have been in the game since Symphony of the Night, but what they finally did in Portrait of Ruin that they should have done in Symphony of the Night and Dawn of Sorrow, where they make their second appearance, is they finally gave them low health. Like, the thing about those enemies that's so weird in Symphony of the Night is that they're these tiny things that run around creating all these environmental hazards because they leave, like, a trail of fire behind them. But they also have a bunch of health. It takes Alucard, like 3 sword swings to kill them, and it's hard to close that distance to get to them. Because keep in mind, in Symphony of the Night, you have a little sword. You don't have a whip. So, like, getting to them is kind of a problem in and of itself, especially if they're dropping fire all over the place. So I think this Stella fight is going to be a disaster. I think in some of my other videos, I said that the other ones were going to be a disaster, but I think this one's going to be terrible. Although one of the consequences of hard mode is that all it takes for a fight to be terrible really is for me to get hit like once or twice. Because I don't know how much damage she does exactly, but I'm sure it's going to be a lot. But this is pretty good. If I can honestly, if I can just keep her in this pattern, if I can get her to keep doing the secret of the Spurious Spring attack, and then have her stay above me a little bit and not do that fucking shit. The thing, okay, I don't know what she's doing is the problem. Like, she's just like sitting there, and I don't know. Oh my god. Get out of there. Get out of there. Okay. Like, I didn't know what she was just like hovering there for a second. I didn't know what she was doing. And then it turned out what she was doing 220 damage to me. Because I fucking ran into her like a doofus. So as I predicted, that was pretty bad, but it wasn't bad in the way that I thought it was going to be. And now this is interesting. I think here... Yes. Here I do the Forest of Doom before the death fight. In my normal mode video, I do it the other way around because of a weird routing thing. So once... Like, in terms of difficulty spikes for the first half of the game on Richter mode, I would say... I would say the Nation of Fools is tricky. The Sandy Grave, not really, because it's just like a couple of rooms in the boss fight. And then, of course, the Grim Reaper is the big problem on Richter mode. That's actually another boss I'm going to fight with Richter, I think. Well, I'm going to have to fight him with Richter at least a little bit, because you can't really beat the Grim Reaper with just Maria. Like, you can. It's possible. But it's extremely tedious, and it's not very fun. And there's a funny thing that happened to me in... So, before I record, every recorded run has like 3 or 4 practice runs behind it. And in one of my practice runs, I was going through the Forest of Doom, and I went into a room that normally has nothing in it but a beehive and some bees. When I say normally, I mean like in the main game, that's all it has in it. But then I went into it in a Richter mode run, and there was a fucking magic expansion in there. And I was like, oh. Okay. Well, I guess I'll adjust my route through the Forest of Doom to go get that. So then I did a second run, and I went back to that same room with the beehive in it, and there was no magic expansion there. So, I don't know what the fuck that's about. I don't know if, like... Because after I saw that, I thought maybe, oh, like in Richter mode, are there, like, more energy tanks available and, like, more magic expansion of things available? So that way, like, to incentivize the player to go... to not just rush to the bosses and to actually explore the whole map. Because there's no reason, really, to go to most of the map in Richter mode, because you don't need map completion to get the Nest of Evil in Richter mode. The Nest of Evil just becomes available to you after the 4 paintings before Bronner had been finished. So I thought maybe they had changed, maybe they'd added more things to incentivize exploration since map completion was no longer relevant. But like I said, I went back and it wasn't there, so I don't know what the hell is going on. I mean, is it fucking random? Like, do energy tanks just and like magic expansions just randomly spawn in different rooms every time you start up a new Richter mode run? That'd be pretty fucking stupid if so. I mean, if it's supposed to incentivize exploration, it failed because I assumed that it was just a weird fluke. That's what's interesting about this game. And about some games in this series, is that I remember trying for a really long time to find out, because I thought about doing Richter mode max level 1, but I told myself I would only do it if I could replicate what I did in the main game, which is get the Konami Man upgrade and get the Twin B upgrade, which increases your offensive stats. And I tried to find, like, information, like, if you... Because the Konami Man and the Twin B in the main game is like they're items, but they're not like... I don't know, I just wasn't sure, but they're really more like permanent buffs to a save file. So I was curious to know if you could do this, if you would get the same thing in Richter mode. Like if you beat Richter mode max level 50, would you get... Or if you beat Richter mode max level 25, would you get, like, buffed int? If you beat it max level 1, would you get buffed strength? Like, that's what I wanted to find out, and I couldn't find an answer. And I ultimately just decided that the answer was probably not, because there's no inventory system in Richter mode. But what's funny about this game and about this series is the fact that I can't find information about things. Like, I guarantee if I went to Google right now and tried to find out information about, like, the random energy tanks in Richter mode, I'm sure I would not find any information about that at all. Because well, part of it is just because Google sucks now. Google's just very bad at figuring out what you want. It's like, oh, did you want this thing? This tangentially related popular thing that is going to advertise to you? No, I didn't want that, actually. That's why I fucking just have to go to game FAQs. Or were you looking for this, like, Reddit thread that's, like, one helpful post and then 6 people trying to be funny? No, I didn't want that. I just wanted to know what the fuck was going on. And I encountered a similar thing when I was dealing with Castlevania Chronicles. This is a tangent, but I don't like the Forest of Doom, so I don't really have much more to say about it. It's as you can see, it's not nearly as problematic as the Nation of Fools, because I'm not getting attacked from off the screen. Everything is very plain and just kind of sits there and dies. And a lot of that has to do with the use of Maria and use of the dragon. Like the dragon trivializes the tombstones. The dragon kills the plants because you can outrange them, like I said. And it's funny that, like, I mean, Richter's good at outranging things too, because the whip has such a really long range, but the dragon is just, like, even better. So this boss, believe it or not, is actually weak to Holy. So this is actually another boss that I'm going to be fighting with Richter. It's weak to fire too, but you can't get Maria in the right position to use her Firebirds, unfortunately. Yeah, Castlevania Chronicles. I remember when I was playing Castlevania Chronicles, I was, like, desperately looking for information about the higher loops of original mode. And I just, like nobody fucking knew anything. Or there was, like, a bunch of misinformation, and I had to find, like, dev interviews to figure out what the higher loops of Chronicles were actually like and what they were actually about. And it's so bizarre to me, because, like, isn't this a well-known series? Like, isn't Castlevania, like, a popular, successful Nintendo franchise? Like, there are fucking Castlevania characters in Smash Brothers. It's not like this is some, like, obscure game, but, like, how do people not know this shit? Like, how am I ever struggling to find information about these games ever? I guess Chronicles is a special case, right? Because that game was kind of like a weird... I mean, everything about Chronicles is strange. Its existence is strange. So I guess that's a special case, but it was, like, weird that I was looking for information about Portrait of Ruin Richter mode, and I couldn't find it. I was like, well, fuck, I guess no one cares. I guess no one knows and no one cares. Anyway, now it's time for the Grim Reaper fight. Richter hard mode is merciful, and it doesn't make you go through the Tower of Death. Richter normal mode does, because, and I'll point out what the difference is when we get to it. There's a path that I'm going to be able to take. When I get to the elevator room, that I'm not that is closed off to you in normal mode. Which, again, I have to assume was deliberate, because trying to go through the Tower of Death on Richter hard mode, because in hard mode every Medusa head petrifies you, and on Richter mode you have no healing items. If you get petrified in the Tower of Death, I feel like you probably just die, because you're either gonna land, you're gonna get like pushed off a platform and land on spikes, or a cloaked knight is gonna shoot his sword at you from 50 miles away. Yeah, this is the path. So in normal mode, you can't walk through the elevator there. I really don't know why. But you just can't. And as you can see, the fact that I can walk through that elevator there means that I can get into the Grim Reaper from the left. But he's ready for me anyway. So, the Grim Reaper. This was actually, much like in the main game, the Grim Reaper is actually one of the few spots where I think it's actually useful to swap characters on the fly, but for totally different reasons. In the main game, swapping characters is useful because they just arbitrarily made Death weak to magic damage when he's in his purple phase, and then weak to physical damage when he's in the gray phase. So the game is basically just telling you to swap to Charlotte at first, and then swap back to Richter. But in Richter mode, in a way that I think is much more organic, what Maria can do that Richter can't is that Maria can break these chains faster. Because Richter's only doing like 29 a hit, but Maria can rack up, look at that. That's like what? 272 damage? Or 244 damage? Or 264 damage? 264 damage in like 3 seconds, and Richter would take 10 whip swings to get close to that. So that's where she's really useful, and this was the part of the fight that I was really struggling with, because for a little bit there, I thought maybe like Richter moved fast enough that I could kind of like fuck with it a little bit more and try to dodge the scythe, and just like wait out the attack basically, because that's the two ways you can deal with that attack. Is you can either break the chains and end it prematurely, or you can wait for him to be finished. But the problem is that the scythe steadily gets faster and faster, so by the time you finish the phase, by the time you finish the attack, by the time the attack runs its course, the scythe is going to be moving so fast that dodging it is not really viable. It's possible... Oh, shit. Okay. Yeah, I probably should have been doing... Well, actually, no, that was fine. Obviously, I left some damage on the table there because Grand Cross didn't tick as much as it could have, but I needed to save the MP to use the dragon to get out of the scythe attack, like I was saying before. Anyway, now we are on to Phase 2 of the run. This is going to stretch from the Grim Reaper fight to the 4th floor of the Nest of Evil. I would say that the Grim Reaper fight is the only part of the early game that really is challenging, except I guess for the Nation of Fools. But the Nation of Fools is only really tricky because of the environmental hazards, in my personal opinion. I never really talked much about, and this is the last commentary I'm going to do, so this is my last chance to do this. I haven't talked much about... I talked about the paintings, but I haven't talked much about the actual castle that the game takes place in, and this little background area where Death is posing like he's saying, "Paint me like one of your French girls," which is a little weird. I did read a criticism once of Portrait of Ruin by somebody who said that the castle felt underdeveloped because it felt like it was more of just sort of like a hub area to take you to the different paintings, which is frankly kind of a strange criticism because that is what it feels like, but I'm fairly sure that's intentional. Not celebrating yet, this isn't the last one. That feels like intentional. Right? Like it's supposed to be a hub world, right? Or a hub area that takes you to the paintings, because the paintings are really like the crux of the game. So I guess his criticism is more that the game was not as single-mindedly focused around Dracula's castle the way that previous games are. But the thing is that do I have much to say about the Stella-Loretta fight? No, this is going to be pretty self-explanatory. I'm targeting Loretta instead of Stella because even though... So the red birds do more damage to Stella, as you can see, but the white birds will do way more damage to Loretta. So, and I'm going to be, yeah, literally more than double the damage, almost triple. So, because I'm hitting them with both types of birds, I'm going to focus down Loretta. And also because the game basically tells you to focus down Loretta anyway, because the only way to interrupt some of her attacks is to do enough damage to her. So, she's the one I'm going to be focusing on. The fight's just over super fast with Maria, because Maria just does so much fucking damage. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is kind of an interesting problem that the Castlevania series had to deal with. Maybe they didn't have to deal with it. Maybe they felt like this was not a problem. This was just a thing that was part of the series. But the thing about Castlevania games is that, you know, it's tricky to make a series of games that all take place in the same place. Not that Dracula's castle is exactly the same every time, of course. Creature of Chaos, as Alucard says in Symphony of the Night. It is constantly changing. But it is a tricky thing to do, where you have one indoor environment for the whole game. And the games that people seem to think of the most fondly, with some exceptions, are actually the games that sort of get away from that. I'm thinking about, like, Dracula's Curse has a very large part of the game where you're wandering around outside. You're not wandering around, you're doing linear levels, but you know what I mean. Super Castlevania 4, of course, the game that everybody fucking loves. You don't get to the castle until level 6. Right? Or is that level 5? No, level 5 is the level where you get to the castle, because level 5 is like not a real level. Ah, excuse me. And then Rondo, of course, is mostly outside the castle, and I think Dracula X, well... No, Dracula X, you're outside the castle for, like, the first level, and then you're kind of inside it. And Rondo also kind of seems like it's kind of, like, swings back and forth between indoor and outdoor areas. And partially that has to do with the... Why am I standing still? I don't know why I was standing still there. Maybe I was... I don't know what I was doing. Yeah, this is actually really lucky because, well, I shouldn't say lucky. It's very fortunate the way that these rooms were arrayed, because there's a breakable wall on the right there with another room, but there's nothing in there that would benefit you on Richter mode. There's a bunch of the only reason you'd ever go in there in the main game is just to get map completion. And the reason that room is a problem is because it's full of rippers, and Maria can kill rippers pretty easily, actually, with the dragon, because the dragon moves super fast and it covers a bunch of ground, which means that it will intercept their daggers, and it's practically guaranteed to hit them. But as you saw there, the rippers are so fucking, like, spastic that they can still, like, they can always just jump over your fucking dragon if they really feel like it. I'm, like, scared to death of those guys, yeah. But the point that I'm making is that I don't necessarily think that the game that's so funny. Also, I'm going to interrupt myself. When the Vapula turns around, it does something that the Chimera in Aria of Sorrow does, actually, when the Chimera turns around, which is that it kind of looks at the camera, which I think is funny. If you look at the thumbnail for my Julius mode video from Aria of Sorrow, I included a frame where the Chimera is looking at the camera because I thought it looked funny. It's the little touches, man. It's the little touches that make video games interesting. My point is that I don't necessarily... If somebody says the Dracula's it feels like not enough of the game takes place in Dracula's castle, I don't necessarily think of that as a criticism in the context of the series as a whole, because I mean, there's a lot of fucking games in the Castlevania series, right? Like, and it's not... I don't think it's unreasonable for the devs to want to find ways to vary up the environments a little bit, right? I mean, I'm not a really big fan of a lot of the paintings in Portrait of Ruin, but that has more to do with just the way that they're designed in terms of, like, the enemy layout, and some of the specific decisions they made about the what to put in the levels. The fact that the levels exist and the fact that the painting levels are the majority of the game was not really a source of any of my antipathy towards them. I don't need a game to take place entirely in Dracula's castle. And in fact, now that I think about it, of my favorite games in the series so far, really the only one that does take place entirely in the castle is Harmony of Dissonance. There are plenty of games... Well, I should clarify that statement. There are plenty of games in the series that I like, that I think are really, really fucking good, that only take place in the castle, like Symphony and Aria and C1, of course. But there is something to be said for that aspect of a journey up to the castle, and I think that's what people love Super Castlevania for so much. One reason. Sorry, I'm not really talking about the game at all. I'm not talking about Portrait of Ruin. This was a very strange fight because I felt like I kept on losing the rhythm of the werewolf fight. Because what you're supposed to do with him, or what I do with him, is I bait his grab attack that he did there, and then I jump over him, then I bait it again, and then I jump over him. Yeah, like what's happening right here and right now. But there, because he started doing other attacks, like his charge forward uppercut attack, I felt like I had lost the rhythm, and I was trying to get it back. And here, he just fucking ambushed me. I didn't know... When he falls over like that, I really don't know what to expect from him. That's always like a kind of a hair-raising moment in the fight. And this was... yeah... It's always a bad sign when my reaction to something is to just like super jump in the air and just hope it goes away, because it very rarely actually works. And this is actually this is like the sloppiest werewolf fight I think I've uploaded. But on the other hand, it's also an indication of how the fight is like supposed to go. Because what I was doing at the start there was I was basically like juking his uppercut attack, like jumping towards him to bait him into doing the uppercut without actually finishing the jump and go like all the way towards him. So I'm like making him think I'm gonna jump at him, but I'm not actually doing it. I'm just jumping enough to trigger the uppercut. And then I can go back to wailing on him. And I think that's closer to how you're supposed to do the fight. Whereas what I do with like the bait the grab attack and then super jump is kind of like a cheese attack. Or no, super jumping doesn't require MP. Why did I... Actually, if I had just super jumped in the air during that whole wolf attack that he did, I might have been fine. I don't actually know why I dropped down there. Maybe I thought he was winding up an uppercut. I don't actually remember. Hum-de-dum-dum-dum. This is also really fucking... It's enemies that just wander off the screen. Let's see if this asshole hits me. I'm gonna celebrate this. This is the last time I ever have to fight this fucker. What's frustrating about this guy is that, like... It feels like there should be a safe spot next to him, but it's like when he comes up out of his little hidey hole to spew the poison, it's like sometimes he'll hit you on the ramp next to him, and then sometimes he doesn't. The positioning for not getting hit by him when he comes out of the hole seems like very specific and obnoxious. Seems very specific, and ergo is very obnoxious, rather. Yeah, I don't know, maybe... I'm trying to figure out, like... Because I had a lot of problems with, like, the Sandy Grave, and by extension with the Forgotten City, and I'm trying to, like, backtrace what it is about this level that annoys me. I guess it's just a lot of really tight environments, and a lot of kind of, like, small, evasive enemies. Which... I guess you would have to have small, evasive enemies in tight environments, right? This part right here is a great example of, like... Why this fucking Quetzalcoatl enemy just fucking sucks 50,000 dicks, like... Because there's no good way to approach him, right? This is funny. What I have to do in order to get... Okay, so here's what I have to do. I have to get down there and Grand Cross before he gets to me. And there, it's just about finding the right spot to bait him towards me, so that way he runs into the Grand Cross. Because, like, you can't really fight those guys. Like, you just have to kill them. which sounds weird, and it is weird, because it's very... It's not the way that the game is usually played. Fuck it, just run. Don't fight this guy. Okay, well, I guess that works. And then the fireball hits me. Yeah, I knew that was going to happen. Once those guys... Usually I kill those guys so fast that they never get a chance to shoot their fireballs, but the fireball does home in on you, and... Okay, here you can actually fight them because they always end up going like right towards you, so you can bait them into Grand Cross. But trying to fight those guys under normal circumstances, like the way the game expects you to, is kind of not really doable because their patterns are so... Their patterns are so fucked. like they're so... Like, there is an element of randomness to it, I'm pretty sure. And this is an interesting case where the lesser demons are weak to holy damage, but the dragon's positional... That is the dumbest fucking shit. Take a drink of coffee after that one. Excuse me for a second, guys. Ah, it's good coffee. Cause like you can't just sit up there and wait for the ectoplasms, because the ectoplasms have this pattern that I think you just need an IQ of 150 to understand, which is not what I have. Where they'll just like kind of come at you from whatever angle they feel like, and it generally seems to be an angle where you're not expecting them. So it's not like I can just walk into that room and then just sit up there on the ledge and kill all the ghosts and then wait for the ectoplasm to show up, because the ectoplasm might just show up by coming at me through a wall and hitting me. So my strategy for that room is just to kind of go through it as fast as possible, which gets you out of the danger of getting randomly hit by the ectoplasm as fast as possible. But obviously the trade-off there is that I don't have time to react to what's going on, and if there's an ectoplasm there, it's just there. Like, if it's gonna hit me, it's just gonna hit me, and there's nothing I can really do about it. Which is galling. It's frustrating. Thank God for Grand Cross, though. Like, this is how you know that hard mode is difficult. The fact that I'm having to use Grand Cross so much in the Forgotten City. And I say have to, because I really do feel like I have to. I don't feel like there's any other viable way to kill these bone dragon riding dudes. And that part back there with all the red skeletons on the steps leading up to... This guy... Okay, thank God. I thought he was going to not die. Part with the red skeletons leading up to the guy throwing the bone boomerang down. Grand Cross is like literally the only way to get through that part without taking damage. It's very frustrating. I mean, I guess I should be grateful that there is a solution, right? And that's kind of what Grand Cross... Grand Cross is kind of like the game's catch-all, like... Make sure Richter can deal with this problem or deal with this mechanic. By just giving you an attack that gives you limited invulnerability and does a bunch of damage. Julius Mode had a similar thing with Julius's Grand Cross. So the Mummy Man, I'm going to fight on Maria, because he's weak to Holy, but he's also weak to Slash, and Maria just does 2 million damage with her birds. This is a kind of an issue where the birds do have a shorter range than like the Whip and the Holy Water would have, but I'm almost certain that this is doing more like DPS than Holy Water. The Holy Water and the Whip would be doing. And also she's smaller, which might actually make it slightly easier to dodge those rocks. The only advantage really that Richter would have in this fight is the fact that he can super jump, which can be sort of like a get-out-of-jail-free card, emergency, drastic movement thing you can do if you're having trouble dodging some of his attacks. But he was very nice to me there. He never did the attack that I have a hard time dodging, which is when he summons, he'll summon like if he summons rocks in a line at the top of the screen, that's fine. But if he summons rocks in like a circle and then throws the rocks at me from different positions around the circle, which is like his other rock summoning attack, then I usually get hit by that at least once. Like, I can dodge it sometimes, and sometimes is never a word you want to hear when you're determining strategies for a run like this. I could skip over these chicks too, but I'm pretty confident in my ability to actually fight them, because they only do 2 things, and I know what their 2 things they're going to do are, and I'm good at reacting to it. So that's why well, apparently not. Apparently I'm just going to get fucking fucked up by these chicks. This is weird. I kept on expecting when that flower was like turning red, I actually thought I was gonna die because I've never been hit by that attack before in Portrait of Ruin, and in Aria of Sorrow there are like plant lady enemies that do I get hit here? Yep, there it is. The classic welcome crow in the first indoor room of the Dark Academy. Where if you jump as soon as you come through the doorway there, the crow just jumps down and fucking hits you. And for a long time I didn't know what was going on because the background is pretty dark and it happens so fast, and the crow moves so fast. I didn't know that was happening. So sometimes I would come into the Dark Academy and I would just like take damage, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? In Aria of Sorrow there were plant lady enemies that would throw like roses that would go on top of your head, and then the roses would deal ticking damage while they were on top of your head, and the ticking damage would add up to like a fucking million damage. So I thought actually back there when Richter had the rose on his head that I was about to die, because I thought that was what was about to happen to Richter, but fortunately for me, that was not the case. But the reason that I don't skip over them is because usually I'm able to clear those plant ladies without taking any damage, whereas everything else in that part of the game is like hunchbacks jumping at you from like a long way away, and it's very just hard to figure out what to do. Die, bitch. Okay. I resent the fact that these axe armors can't take damage from Maria's sub-weapons. This is funny. So, that old axe armor there, he can sometimes wander off the screen like that to the left, and you might think, well, that's good, right? Because he just removed himself from the game. Well, sometimes. Sometimes when that old axe armor wanders off to the left, he's not in the game anymore, and then sometimes he is still there, and he will actually charge out of the void and hit you. I don't remember if that's happened in any of the footage that I posted, not the last one yet. I don't remember if that's happened in any of the footage I've posted so far, but that's definitely happened to me before during attempts, is that axe armor will run out of the netherworld and hit me when I can't possibly hit him. Yeah, whenever you're in doubt, just use the fucking dragon. If you're like evasive enemies, you're not sure if you're gonna hit them, they're on the floor, just use the fucking dragon. It's actually like this is why it was a necessary balancing factor to not replicate Maria's high movement speed from Rondo, because if Maria was faster than Richter and had access to the dragon, then I feel like you would almost never play as Richter. I guess if I really wanted to, I could have cleared out the hunchbacks and the trees on the way into the Dark Academy with Maria and with the dragon. I don't know. It's faster to super jump over them. And the thing is that I'm playing on hard MaxLv50, so there is technically an incentive to kill enemies, but I'm not interested in like. I don't want to go out of my way to kill enemies just to get levels, right? I mean, I'll augment my path through the castle based off of the fact that I'm going to be gaining more levels, but I'm not going to specifically like grind or farm or make decisions, take like inefficient routes or routes with more enemies just to get more levels. It's just kind of a thing where well, I'm going to be higher level later in the game, so I'm going to save the Burnt Paradise for last, and I'm going to do 13th Street first, which by the way is why I'm doing the paintings in this order. I'm going basically from easiest to hardest, so that way when I get to the Burnt Paradise and when I get to the Frankenstein boss coming up here at the end of the Dark Academy, I'm the highest possible level that I can be. Well, not the highest possible level, but I'm going to be higher level than I would be in 13th Street and Forgotten City. Because Forgotten City is annoying, but it's not really dangerous. The Dark Academy is dangerous because of this guy, and then the Burnt Paradise is dangerous just by its very nature. So let's see how this Frankenstein fight goes. I think my understanding of the fight was not great at this point. See, this is already a mistake, because I shouldn't be fighting him on Richter. The reason I wanted to fight him on Richter was because I could super jump to avoid the bullet attack. So it's not a terrible decision, actually, to fight him on Richter, but Maria would be doing a lot more damage, and with this guy, basically the faster the fight is over, the better. On hard mode, you can take, I think, like 3 hits from this guy on hard mode, I'm pretty sure. So If he hits me once or twice with the machine gun attack, it's not the end of... Yeah, this is actually the optimal way to do it, is to... If I know he's going to be standing still doing an attack for a while, then I swap to Maria and rack up some damage. But then if he's on the move, if he's deciding to do something, then I can Richter... Yeah, this is optimal play right here. Maybe permanent Maria would be perfectly optimal, but if based on, like, if I just want to play it safe, then this is pretty darn good. And he's actually being very nice to me with these machine gun attacks, because normally the machine gun attack is something that I don't like to see out of the Frankenstein monster, but that's because in the normal game at this point Jonathan would not have the Griffin Wing, he wouldn't have the super jump. So without the super jump, the machine gun attack is a lot harder to dodge, because you basically have to be a particular distance away from him and you have to like jump over it, which is a lot harder. But if you have the super jump, it's not a problem, which I think is excuse me, which I think is the origin actually of the double Frankenstein room concept in the Nest of Evil in the first place. I think the devs probably realized that hey, you know, this Frankenstein fight gets a lot easier once the player has the super jump. What if we had... Well, but hey, do you think we can get the player to fight two of them? But that was just, I think, a overly simplistic understanding of the boss fight, because introducing two Frankenstein monsters creates so many problems that the super jump is good at handling, but cannot consistently solve. Anyway, this is an interesting route. This is not the route that I think I take in my normal mode videos. And I don't remember why I'm doing this. I think it's because on hard mode... No, this has to be it. On hard mode, the path to the left has Medusa head enemies that petrify you. And I think when I did Jonathan normal, or when I did Jonathan hard mode, I took that route anyway, because in the main game you have healing items, right? You have like a get out of jail free card, you have a panic button. If I get hit by the Medusa heads and I like randomly take 400 damage on the right path, then I can just heal it off. On Richter mode, that's not an option, so I think I was just playing a lot more scared of the Medusa heads, and I wanted to completely avoid them. And fortunately, because I'm playing as Maria here, I have a good tool to deal with the Rippers down here, because the Rippers are like the thing that makes this route shitty, is that I feel there's more Rippers in this path. And honestly, Maria with the dragon just kind of solves a lot of the Burnt Paradise's problems. Like, those green blobs are really dangerous. The Rippers are really dangerous. The Vice Beetles that, like, spew poison at you from off the screen are fucking assholes. But the dragon just kind of fixes all of that, because it goes so fast and it covers so much ground. So the dragon is, like... It's, like, your best tool, basically. I think that Ripper just, like, jumped off the edge of the universe. Oh, he jumps back in. What the fuck? Okay, I don't... Oh, what... Okay. Am I gonna get hit? I somehow don't get hit. That's actually incredible. Oh, and there's a funny thing I do here. I think I trick the game into thinking that I've already shot red birds on the next screen when I shoot them on this screen. I think oh no, I guess that was in the other footage. Sorry, I guess I should have pointed that out when it happened. Yeah, there's a weird thing where, like I jump up into the room with the Vice Beetle, then I shoot the poison, then I shoot the Firebirds, then I fall back down again and shoot the Firebirds in the lower screen, but then when I jump back up to the higher screen, like, the Firebirds are already, like, starting to come out. So it's like I shoot the Firebirds on a lower screen, but the game maintains the bird's positioning even through the screen transition. Here I'm just desperately trying to kill this thing. Okay, there. This part's pretty straightforward. This part is only really hard because of the... This is pretty much just purely an environmental hazard area, because there are Rippers further down the screen, but if you're coming into the room from this angle, you can just fall right past the Rippers and not engage them at all. This room is a pain in the ass, because there's a Vice Beetle over to the left there somewhere who will shoot poison at you before you can see him. Fortunately, I remembered that he was there, so I was able to kill him preemptively. And now I'm pretty much safe, right? I think there's a Ripper room in here, which yeah. And then I think a room with, and then the boss room. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the weirdest. That's like one of the weirdest rooms in the whole game. The one that I just ran through there because it's full of shit and absolutely none of it matters. Like you could just walk through that room and not engage with any of like the skull trees or like the soccer playing skeletons or whatever. So fighting the Medusa on Richter or Maria is kind of like neither option is honestly great. But Richter is slightly better because of this attack right here. So the thing about this attack is that what you're supposed to do is stand in between the coils of her body, right? And you might be thinking, Shovatar, that seems pretty easy. There's like a space right there between the coils. Why don't you just drop down into it? Well, it's because the game is extremely picky about when you're touching her and when you're not touching her. It's like if Richter's big toe is like barely brushing up the dust clouds that are being kicked up by Medusa's body, then you take damage. And because this is hard mode, you take a lot of damage. And because I don't have healing items, I don't want to take damage. So the safer option with that attack of hers is to basically just ignore it and just super jump on the ceiling the whole time until it's over. Because this fight, I usually no damage this fight, but this like stuff can always go wrong here, especially with Richter, because this is another part where Richter's very high movement speed can actually be a problem. Because a lot of this fight is, and this is another like Richter hazard. A lot of this fight, if you fight her on Richter, is going to be kind of like trying to get close enough to her to hit her with your whip. And the whip has a very long range, so you don't have to be that close. But as you can see here, like, let's see if it happens again. No, I'm hitting her pretty consistently. Okay. I've had weird moments with Medusa where like I feel like I should be hitting her, but I'm not. But I seem to be mostly like that one right there. My whip passed right through her body. I think what it might be is that she might just be invincible during certain animations, and I never really understood that that was the case. So I felt like I should have been hitting her, even though I actually couldn't have been hitting her. I wonder if that's what was going on. Anyway, yeah, the thing about fighting her on Richter that's risky is that you're constantly like swaying around through the air trying to follow her and keep her in your whip range, but because Richter moves so fast, it's very easy to end up like air strafing into a position that you don't want to be in. Namely, air strafing into her while she's like weirdly moving around and bonking into her and taking damage. Now I go to the Nest of Evil, where dreams go to die. Used to get to hear this rockin' music again, right? One last time. I don't think I've ever mentioned this about the Nest of Evil. In my many complaints about the Nest of Evil, I don't really like the music. Part of this may just simply be a result of association, because I've heard the music so much, and I kind of now physiologically associate it with a stress response, but I also don't really like it that much. Most of the music in Portrait of Ruin is honestly kind of mediocre. It's really just like the intro theme, and then like the second boss theme that's pretty good, and then the Dracula boss theme is pretty good. But I don't really like the rest of it. And it's a thing that's hard to describe because I'm not like a music theory guy. I don't really know. I don't know like terms, and I have a hard time really like. I have a hard time articulating like what makes me like a song or what makes me not like a song. But it's, I know it when I hear it. Jesus fucking Christ, die! God, these things have so much health. But this is how you should play this room. Is you should be very careful with your positioning to not activate the second Archdemon while you're fighting the first one. Is it Arch or Arc? I used to say Arc when I was younger, but now I say Arch. I feel like it's Arch. I don't know. I think what confused me is that, you know, in Scottish there's Loch, which is spelled Loch, but it's not the Loch Ness Monster, it's the Loch Ness Monster. And now I'm talking about the Loch Ness Monster instead of the Nest of Evil. God, this room is like... Okay, this is like... The Nest of Evil is another place where the dragon... Excuse me, the dragon is your best friend. That's why he's my profile picture, because he's so good. Oh god, okay. I think I forgot what this room was. Or maybe... I don't know, like that opening, those first movements seemed kind of panicked, but maybe but this actually works, so maybe I was just reacting really, really quickly. This is the last one! It's the last final guard! Hooray! Oh my god, I'll never have to fight another one of these fucking tedious, boring-ass enemies ever again. Hallelujah. Never again will I have to plink an enemy down 1 HP at a time. And just bring the pace of the game to a fucking screeching, grinding halt. It's all over. It's all fucking over. Does this guy have braces? This dude has braces on. I never noticed that before. Well, you know, I guess... Now let me ask you this. Does a giant have a giant dentist, or does he just have a bunch of regular-sized dentists all working on his teeth? Somebody contact Igarashi on Twitter and ask him if Balor from Dawn of Sorrow got braces from a giant dentist or from a regular-sized dentist, please. Because I really want to know. Yeah, like I started to say before, this is how you have to play a lot of the rooms in the Nest of Evil. It's just like, don't go any farther into the room than you absolutely have to. This is... okay. Alright. That works. That's fine. Usually, I kind of wonder if... No, that was probably the smarter play. Because I could have killed that thing with the Firebirds, but I think it was smarter to just take advantage of the fact that Richter has limited invulnerability. Or has invulnerability during Grand Cross, because the thing about the Ruler Sword that makes it so dangerous is that I feel like I never really know where its damage areas are. By damage areas, I mean hitboxes, because like I destroy the swords, but then it can regenerate the swords, and it doesn't always go. Yeah, this room on Richter mode sucks a lot, because you don't really... There's nothing you can really do, I feel like. I don't know, maybe if I super jump to the other end of the room, then I can bait them to get them off. No, they'll just follow me. I feel like I've tried that before. This part, once you clear out the initial rush of them, then it's fine, but that first, like, phalanx is just, like, fucking, like... I don't know how you're supposed to deal with it. Because there's not enough time to shoot 2 dragons to hit them all. By the time one dragon... And it takes 2 dragons to break their armor, as you can see. So maybe if I was like, I don't know how much damage it takes to break their armor, but maybe if I was a higher level, I could do it with just Maria. But if I'm low enough level that it takes 2 dragons to break their armor, then I don't really have a way to get through this room without taking some damage. Because Grand Cross is the only thing that can like start to clear them out. But as you saw right there, it wasn't enough to catch all of them. This is pretty funny. The fact that the dragon like bonks off of him. I switched to fighting this guy on Richter so I can so that way I'm not spending MP to fight him, because I want as much MP as I can going into the next fight, just so I can make it go by faster. Am I impatient? Oh, I'm gaining health back. This is actually a bad idea, because this is actually like really risky, because I'm not good at doing it, and the last input for the attack requires you to hit right, which means that if I fuck it up on the wrong time, I can just like walk into him. So, and it's not really worth it to take that risk, because the next boss that's coming up is Gurgoth, and I am never going to take damage on Gurgoth. Like, it's just never going to happen. Not at this point. Not after I've like spent like fucking 3 months fighting this guy, or like 2 months fighting this guy. Like I will never take damage from Gurgoth. So any concerns for my health at this point are irrelevant. I could go into this fight with 1 HP and I would be totally fine. And if you had fought the same boss fucking 200 times, you would be that confident in your ability to. And look at that, Maria is just like perfect for it. Her birds literally arc right up into his fucking face. The white birds, I mean, and the red birds also take an upward trajectory that is acceptable. How the fuck is there 10 minutes left in this segment? I only have like 2 more floors. Oh, it's probably because the Zephyr fight's going to take forever. Yeah, maybe. The last boss of the 3rd floor is probably going to take a while. The gold skeleton rooms are probably going to take a while. That's why there's so much time left. You guys aren't going to see it, and when you guys watch this video on YouTube, it's going to be one continuous thing, but like I said at the start, this was in 3 segments, so I'm commentating 1 segment at a time. There's that sound delay again. Why is it doing that? Whatever. Yeah, you know, doing those normal mode runs where I played as only Richter or only Maria was like fucking stupid, because this is so much better. Because they like giving them like their tools are so obviously divvied out in such a way that they're supposed to complement each other. It was pretty stupid actually for me to do that. Like I can drag in to clear out one room and then I can just swap to the fucking Richter to kill the Alistors, you know? Here I'm being really careful because the Yoriks, the skeletons that play soccer, excuse me, can actually do a fucking ton of damage to you if you're not careful. Because they'll kick their skulls at you and then the skulls just like keep fucking hitting you. So this is going to be a lot like my my clear of this room on normal mode, but the stakes are much higher, and as before, the Grand Cross is kind of like a panic button. I don't remember how much health these guys have. I want to say it's like 200 and something, so the fact that these whip swings are only doing 12 damage or 13 damage is an issue. And the Grand Cross is not just a panic button, it's also like a necessary part of the strategy, because I will eventually run out of room to dodge. I think it's possible that if I were to incorporate whip flailing into the kills, if I whip them and then flail as soon as they finish, like as soon as the bones are in the air, then I could probably still kill them even if my back was up against the wall, but I don't really like working whip flailing. I don't like whip flailing. I don't like trying to incorporate it into like combat strategies, because it's very that was not necessary, because it's very like weird to like have to suddenly like flail your arrow keys around when like a moment ago you're using them to move. I don't know. And plus they keep walking towards me, so if I'd gotten in the habit of just like whip flailing after every whip swing, then they could just fucking walk into me. And this like jumping back and reevaluating my position might be better to avoid situations like that. And I'm pretty sure I've been in this room long enough that I could just jump over this guy and not fight him, but I didn't do that. Because every room in the Nest of Evil will open after, like, I don't know, a minute, I think? And that's going to be really useful later on, but it's not relevant yet. Except for the boss rooms, of course. You can't just juke the bosses for a minute and then get out of there. So who do I fight this guy on? Richter? Okay. You can fight Zephyr on Richter or Maria. That's basically not... he just stands there. That's really funny. Okay. Okay, I am fighting him on Maria. Okay. Well, this is probably fine, actually, because it means that I can trigger his, I can hit him from far away. The dragon will intercept his knives, I think, if he throws knives at me. And plus, I can if he does his like time freeze thing, I can just trigger a dash by just spamming dragons at him from almost off the screen. So this is actually pretty good. And Maria's not as fast as Richter, but she's fast enough and she can jump high enough that she can avoid his attacks, so it doesn't really matter. Why am I swapping to Richter? Oh, because Maria's out of because I'm basically out of MP. Okay. So if Maria's better for fighting this guy if you have MP, but if you don't have MP, then the whip is better at Ooh, nope. Yeah, I knew that was gonna happen. Ooh. Okay, I don't get hit. Thank God. Yeah, what happened there was when he crouches and does like the time freeze thing, he can either, if you hit him, he'll dash at you. If you don't hit him, he'll do what he just did there and summon daggers that fall down on you. What I was trying to do there was jump up in the air, because if you're far enough away from him when he does that attack, he'll cancel it and he won't do anything. But the problem is that I fell back down into his purview, into his like range of influence, while he was still in the process of doing the attack, and the consequence of that was that the attack triggered, because by the time when the charging period was over, I was in his range, even though I had double jumped out of it at the start. So I think it's much smarter there to just attack him during the charge thing, when he crouches and like charges up his time powers. It's much smarter to just trigger a charge, because I know I can dodge the charge. I know I can just jump over it. It removes kind of the uncertainty factor. So this guy is actually scary as fuck. It's gonna be. I think I just no damage him like I normally do. But if this guy actually hits you, with that lightning attack, it's like fucking insane. It does like 270 or something. And there's a slight vertical component too, so like I can't just. I have to super jump over him. I have to super jump over him kind of preemptively. What am I doing? Why am I just standing here? Oh, am I trying to remember what's in the next room? I think I'm trying to remember what's in the next room. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's why I paused, because I forgot. And I decided that if I don't remember what's in the next room, then as soon as I get into it, I'm pausing so I can like look at it and evaluate it. Yeah, this was a problem I had a lot in the Nest of Evil, was I had an issue with remembering what happened in each of the rooms. I had the same problem actually in the battle arena in Circle of the Moon. And they both stem from the same issue, which is that everything in the Nest of Evil and the battle arena looks the same. I guess I could have written it down, or I could have like alt-tabbed and looked it up, but I don't know. I didn't really want to like stop and alt-tab in the middle of a run, because I didn't know how long it was going to take. Well, I didn't know how long it was going to take to like alt-tab and then like load up the fucking page and then look it up and then tab back in again. I knew it couldn't be anything that bad, because the only rooms that require like split-second reactions are the room with all of the armored fleamen, and then a room that's going to come up here in a second. Most of the other rooms, well, and I guess the third room with all the Light Keepers and the Mothmen, because they'll like just run right towards you, and the Minotaur room. So actually, there are a couple of rooms that require split-second reactions, but at this point in the Nest of Evil, there aren't that many of them left. And all the other ones that are like that, I would remember, because they are memorable for that reason. That was fucking scary. I think that actually might have hit me. And like the horse dude, I'm pretty sure those bone arc lightning balls will hit you for like 270 or something. Like that's what's supposed to make them so dangerous. That's what's supposed to counteract their limited mobility, is the fact that their attacks do so much damage. Yeah, this room you gotta react right away. And then what's in this next room? Oh yeah, you gotta react pretty fast here too. Oh, this is so bad. Okay. Okay, good. Yeah, normally what I try to do is just kill them with the vampire killer and leave it at that, but if I don't get enough hits in, then I gotta do something extra. And here I just skip straight to the something extra because it's safer. Because it's like because the thing about the ruler swords, this is like the ruler sword conundrum, is that you have to jump to try to hit them, but jumping into them is how you take damage from them. So it's like the only viable path to killing them is also the path that involves inserting yourself directly into their range of influence, which is annoying. I mean, that's how a lot of enemies are, right? You have to engage with them in order to kill them. But what's frustrating about the ruler swords is the fact that they summon the swords, like after you destroy the first batch of swords, they summon the second batch like at some point, and whether or not whatever attack you're executing is going to destroy them as he's summoning them is sort of like, maybe it's going to happen, maybe it's not going to happen. Not much to say about Agony, because as you can see, Maria just shreds him, and now I think we're going to come up on the last cut, because the next room is going to be the Double Frankenstein room. Pretty much the whole reason I'm using save states in the first place is this room coming up, and I'm gonna... I don't know. I feel like I've already like said everything I possibly can about it, and I don't want to repeat myself, but I do feel like I should at least try to explain myself a little bit. So ever since I played Dracula's Curse, basically, I've made it I've made a point of not doing any of these runs with the use of save states. Because when I think of my experience, not just with Dracula's Curse, actually this is the case for C1 as well. Like, people can say, like, I don't have a problem with people, if people want to use save states to just, like, beat a game, like, they're just casually playing it, and it's like, because I know, like, the Castlevania Advanced Collection on Steam, I think, has, like, a rewind for Dracula X or something. So, like, if you want to do it, you know, that's fine, but I do think that playing a game with save states and without save states is just a different experience. When there's more on the line, everything feels way more intense and way more demanding, and it means that you have to find solutions to problems that don't just work one time, but that work every time, right? So, and that brings me to the Double Frankenstein fight. The reason why I decided to use save states for these Richter mode runs for the is because there is no solution to these guys that works every time. There's not really even a solution to those guys that works like half of the time. Yeah, here I actually, what's funny about this is that I made another save state, because originally I was just going to make a save state before the Frankenstein boss, but I made a second save state after the Frankenstein boss, basically out of rage. But the ironic thing is that this attempt where I made that save state, that second save state, is actually the one where I finished the whole stretch. So I never actually reloaded from that state, even though I made it. So, yeah, a different experience, and it's an important distinction. The thing about the Double Frankenstein fight is that, you know, I handled that, I would say, pretty well, but a lot of why that went well is because there were times when I had to guess whether or not one of the Frankensteins that was off the screen was going to use, like, the machine gun attack, or the missile attack, or the lightning attack, and I just kind of, like, guessed correctly in a lot of cases. And I have, like, this... By the way, I should explain why I'm just standing here. So, the doors to the Nest of Evil, to the next room, will open after, like, a minute. Oh, excuse me. So I could try to kill these guys with Maria, but I'm not 100% sure if dragons are going to kill them fast enough before they hit me. So the safest solution to get through that room is to just stand there and stare at them for a minute, and then just super jump over them all after the doors open. But yeah, to finish my excuses about the Double Frankenstein room, I think that when a video game doesn't give you, like, the information that you need in order to... Because that's the problem with the Double Frankenstein room, is the fact that the fight is designed in such a way that you will be forced to move constantly, and it's very easy to move into a position where you can no longer see them, and you can now no longer close distance with them because you can't see them. And because you don't know what they're going to do, right? If, like, you can't safely close distance with one of the Frankenstein monsters unless you know what next attack they're winding up is. And if you don't have that information, you can't make an intelligent decision, and if you can't make an intelligent decision, then you can't do it consistently. And if you can't do it consistently, then there's no point in trying to do a run without save states, because a save state A no save state run is a run where the challenge is finding consistent solutions, and if there's no consistent solution to that room because the game is simply not giving me the information that I require, then it's a waste of my time, basically, to not use save states. I guess a more childish way to phrase my reasoning is basically if the game gets to cheat, then I get to cheat. And I think not telling me information that I need to know in order to determine how to react to a boss fight is basically is cheating. Like that's like video game 101 is you need to tell the player what's going on, right? And I actually don't have very much to say about the Abaddon fight, although we should celebrate because this is the last time I will ever fight Abaddon in my entire life. And let's see if we can make it a no damage. I don't remember if this is a no damage or not. Maria is like more likely to make it a no damage than anybody else because she kills him super fast. I actually could be throwing dragons at him from that corner, but I'm not doing it because I think I'm just focusing purely on him and on what he's doing and on dodging the attacks that are coming through. Because when I fought this guy on Yoko, that's what I would do. If I was off in a corner, if I was a long distance away, I would shoot like long range spells at him. But that's just because on Yoko, that's really the only good time you have to deal damage to him, because it's very risky to, well, because on Yoko, you just want the fight to be over as fast as possible, because the fight in and of itself is so risky on Yoko. Anyway, so I should celebrate. It's the last Abaddon ever, and it's a no damage, although no damaging Abaddon on Maria is not really that difficult. So yeah, that's my long-winded excuse for the fact that this run made me break my usual rule of not using save states. You know, it is what it is. It's one of those things where I just kind of have to decide what my limits are, you know. With Dracula's Curse, I'll go back to Dracula's Curse. Like, you know, I could get to the second room of 9-4, right? And the RNG skulls, on hard mode, I mean, on second quest. And the RNG skulls could just fuck me, right? I could get, and this actually only really applies to when I did Dracula's Curse, no death with the Akama code, because if you're 1C-ing Dracula's Curse, then, like, you could think of it as, you know, like if you randomly lose a life, you could have played better previously in the run in order to make it so that that's not the end of the 1CC, right? But if you're just going for one life, no miss, no death, then you don't have that luxury. Anyway, my point is, like if I get to 9-4, the second room of 9-4, and I die to the RNG skulls, or if I get to, you know, 7-7 in Alucard, or 7-6 in Alucard rather, and I get to the and I die to the RNG skulls, you know, I lose 35-45 minutes. If I die on A1 to the RNG skulls, I lose maybe, you know, maybe like 45 minutes, right? Maybe 40 minutes. Depending. If I die to the double Frankenstein room in Portrait of Ruin, because some random pattern just fucked me, then I lose, what, an hour and 20 minutes? An hour and 10 minutes? Oh, I should explain what's happening here. This is the same thing as the cave troll room. You can't, like, fight these guys on Richter mode. You just can't do it, because they don't take any damage from Maria's sub-weapons. I don't think they take any damage from Richter's sub-weapons. You have to whip them, and the vampire killer, the whip just doesn't do enough damage to kill them before they get to you, so you just really can't do this room. I mean, maybe you can, but I never figured out how to do it. Yeah, so it's like, I'm losing an hour and 20 minutes to something that is not, like, not fun, and not under my control, and not, okay, so I actually probably could have cleared those trolls with the dragon. Well, actually, maybe not, because the trolls, in the room that's full of trolls, they start closer to you. So maybe it was smarter for... I mean, it was definitely smarter to just not fight them at all, because that avoided the risk entirely. But I might have been okay. Or rather, but it might have been the smart decision. It might have been the only viable decision, rather. Actually killing the cave trolls may not have been an option. And at a certain point, I just kind of have to set limits. Like, what am I willing to put up with? What am I willing to endure? And I think it's pretty funny, actually, that Portrait of Ruin is what drove me to that point, and not Dracula's Curse. Not Dracula's Curse, not Chronicles Original Mode, not Dracula X, but Portrait of Ruin, a game released in 2005. 2005, 2006? I don't remember which year this game came out in. I mean, I think it's 2006, actually. And again, I've complained about the Double Frankenstein room so much that I feel like I've exhausted everything I could possibly say about it. So I'm not gonna. This is an interesting situation. How do I get out of this? Okay, yeah, that's kind of like the nuclear option if you absolutely need to get out of like a corner that Trevor, Sypha, and Grant put you in. Is you do a very specific double jump into a super jump to try to get out of there. And here, I don't really have a very good strategy for I think it would almost be smarter to get Trevor, to hit Trevor first, because what Trevor is not doing right now that he will start doing once he takes enough damage is jumping. And what I learned how to do eventually, after in my normal mode runs, which were actually recorded after this, so I didn't know this at the time, but what I learned how to do later on was like bait his jump, like so that I could that's why that solution is so hard, because it's very easy to accidentally like bonk your head into Grant. What I learned how to do was bait his jump and then slide under him. And that would basically eliminate the problem of how do I get to Sypha, which is where a lot of these issues are coming in. And the reason that I'm so hesitant to do what I just did there, which is just jump over Trevor, is because Trevor, I don't know, it's like sometimes he lets you jump over him and then sometimes he doesn't, and I don't know what makes it. That was something that I had never figured out the whole time, was like, when does he, because sometimes he'll just like whip you as soon as you come down on the other side of him, and then sometimes he'll, oh no, I did know how to do it here. Okay, interesting. So Trevor starts jumping either when he takes enough damage or when Sypha dies, so it's either one, and I guess I still didn't want to. I guess the problem with doing Trevor first is that I have to slide under him after I bait the jump, and if that doesn't line up serendipitously with Sypha's spell, then I could be put in a situation where like I have to slide into a freeze, which is not really what you want. I guess I probably could have done something where it's like I hit Sypha enough until she stops doing the freeze spell, because that's really when she's dangerous, is when she's using freeze. Once she starts using fire, she's much less threatening, and then when she starts up with lightning, then it gets scary again. But I think if I was absolutely, oh, this is so fucking okay. I think if I was absolutely min-maxing, maybe that would be the smartest thing to do. Would be get Sypha into the fire phase, then burn Trevor down while Sypha's thing is like manageable. Then kill Sypha, then kill Grant, because Grant is the least threatening of the trio. And I feel like he does more in Symphony of the Night. Something about Symphony of the Night that makes it weird is that I played it for like a month. I played it for longer than I've played a lot of other games, but I feel like I know it much less than a lot of the other Metroid-style games, Metroid-style Castlevania games that I've played, because I never really had to learn Symphony of the Night. Like, I never really had to figure out the boss mechanics really intricately. I never had to, like, drill through any parts of it, because the game was so easy. And that is one thing that I've kind of thought about doing before, is kind of going back to Symphony of the Night and trying to do with it what I did with Harmony of Dissonance, which is basically take an easy game and try to turn it into a hard game. Oh, this is actually really cool what's coming up here. So the doppelganger fight at the end of the Nest of Evil, I'm kind of hoping here, because, which is why I kind of stopped for a second before I went in, because I was basically praying, because I learned how to, because I was hoping it would be the Richter doppelganger, because I actually wanted to showcase this really interesting strategy. So this was like actually a really cool thing to learn, because when I first got into this boss fight, I thought it was impossible. Like, I thought beating Richter, like beating the Richter doppelganger was just like I said, impossible, because I figured out how to beat the Maria doppelganger. If you go in so that the Maria doppelganger has the turtle sub-weapon, because the doppelganger will just never use it. She just runs around like trying to throw birds at you. But the Richter doppelganger is like so aggressive, and his whip has such a long range. But I learned how to do this, which is kind of a more advanced version of baiting Trevor's jump. Because the thing about baiting Trevor's jump is that Trevor, after you bait his jump, you can slide under him and go right past him. But with Richter, you can also do that, but it's trickier. You have to be like really precise, because if you slide under him early, he will whip you, and it's not economical to slide under him and then throw dragons at him, and then slide under him and then throw dragons at him. It's much simpler to just do this, because the thing is that Trevor walks slowly, right? So once you slide under Trevor, you can get distance on him, and now you have a period where you can just get in the damage. And I really wanted that to be a no damage, but unfortunately I hesitated there for a second. I think I was like, because there's a particular rhythm you have to get into, and I guess I should explain what actually is happening here, like AI-wise. So if Richter thinks you're trying to jump over him, he will jump and whip. But you have to be jumping and moving close enough to him to make him think that that's going to happen. But if I run too far away from him after I bait the jump, then he won't jump, he will like run at me and try to whip me on the floor. So that's basically what that little dance is. It's making him think that I'm going to jump over him over and over again, and then not actually doing it, but instead shooting a dragon at him on the way down. So, I learned about that strat because I watched a video. I'll put it in the description, because I do actually want to like give this guy a shout out, because it was a pretty sick video. Where he basically just does that to the Richter doppelganger, but he's doing it. I think he's doing it max level 1, so I don't think he doesn't take any damage, because if he did, he would die. And he's not using the dragon; he's using the birds for some reason. So I'll add a description. I'll add that video in the description. I gotta remember to actually do that. Look at that pheasant! Look at that pheasant on the table. I think that's a pheasant anyway. Now let's see how the Brawner fight goes. This was before I knew how to do the fight on Richter, but fortunately I don't have to know how to do the fight on Richter. And I think I'm going to switch here. Okay, I should have switched to Maria there. Because doing that like poison attack, avoiding that poison attack without... on Richter can actually be kind of risky, because it... because he walks so fast that you can accidentally bump into one of the legs, and yeah, that's why I swapped to Maria there. And if you're wondering why I took the time to, like, get rid of those paint things that, like, weren't on the screen, like here, what I'm doing again, is because, you know, like, maybe they're on the floor, maybe they're not. I really don't know, because there have been times where I'm absolutely certain that I'm not going to hit a, like, paint piece that I didn't catch. And then he does the, like, summon 2 giant gray statues attack. Yeah, this attack right here. And I'll, like, jump over them and somehow jump into the paint splotch that's, like, embedded in the ceiling. So I just don't want to take any fucking chances. Like, because I'm not going to be closing distance with him to do damage to him at that point in time anyway, because he's doing, like, he's throwing, like, the paint globules around. So if I'm not doing anything else in that point in time, then I might as well spend the time clearing out the last of the paint. And that's basically how the fight is supposed to be played, which I never really had to do until I got to Richter mode. And yeah, this is actually, the Brawner fight is actually the best example of the character swap mechanic kind of in action, because I feel like I'm constantly swapping back and forth between Richter and Maria to take advantage of what their tools. So this is actually really cool. And it's more so, honestly, than Charlotte and Jonathan ever. And it's because their tools are more limited than that was such quick thinking. Like, I realize that's exactly what I did last time, but that situation right there, when he summons the poison painting and it's like behind me and the place that I need to go to is like through the painting, that's exactly the kind of situation where I usually like panic and I like forget what to do. But there, I would like try to like jump over him or something stupid and go to the opposite, like go to the corner I'm closer to. But there, I kept my head level and I did what I was supposed to do, and I sludded into the corner. I slided it into the corner like I was supposed to. This guy's taken a long time to die. But yeah, it's because Richter doesn't just have different combat tools; he has different movement tools. And that's kind of why the constant swapping back and forth is happening in a lot of cases, because I'm swapping to Richter to slide out of the way of the poison wheels, and then I'm swapping back to Maria to, like, do the rest of the fight. With Charlotte and Jonathan, I guess Jonathan has the super jump, so that's something, but I feel like there are fewer applications of of the super jump than there are of Richter's slide. Although maybe not. Maybe not. I think horizontal movement tools are just like always fun. Like it's always fun to go fast. Which actually, I'm gonna bring up a criticism of Portrait of Ruin that I never did until now, which is that, well, actually, no, I'm actually not gonna bring it up because it'll be. I'll talk about it when I talk about Order of Ecclesia because it's related to Order of Ecclesia. So I'll just wait for that. And here we are, the final boss. I don't think this is a no damage. I think this is a heartbreaker where I take damage at the very end. But the last time I said that, it turned out that I was wrong. So, this is actually such a bad situation. Okay, alright. Yeah, that's kind of the nightmare scenario right there, where, like, you haven't baited death, and, like, the fireballs are coming at you, and you're, like, slowly running out of space, like you're slowly going towards the wall. Honestly, I'm just pretty fucking lucky that Death didn't decide to do his, because sometimes I feel like if Death is, like, up floating around for too long, and you don't bait him, if you spend too much time not baiting him, I feel like he'll eventually do this attack where he'll summon a bunch of clones of himself and have them all, like, slash down at you. And if he does that while I'm trying to dodge Dark Inferno, then, I'm gonna be in for a real fucking bad time. So normally, like, a situation like that where I'm baiting him, like, where he's, like, chasing me across the entire room is exactly when I would expect him to use that attack, but apparently not. Maybe I just don't understand what makes the attack happen. Maybe the attack is just random and it doesn't have anything to do with like how long he's in the air. Now let's see if they actually get this attack off or if I kill them here. My plan is to kill them here, but they may... Oh, sweet. Okay, that was actually a perfect response to that attack. That usually what happens there when they get to that point in the phase where they get to the middle and they do the spell where they summon all the scythes, is either I kill them at that point, or I fuck up and I don't destroy all of the scythes that they summon, and Dracula. Because the way that attack is supposed to go is Dracula will summon the scythes, pull them into his body, then shoot them back out as fireballs. And it's kind of like the worst thing that could possibly happen because it covers half of the entire screen in fireballs, and it's very hard to avoid because what you're supposed to do is destroy the scythes, but it's just hard to destroy all the scythes. And also, when he sends out the fireballs, he'll like throw his arm out. Oh, and here they're getting ready to do their like super death attack, but this is when I kill them. So what was happening there was, it's actually a pretty cool attack, but unfortunately you're never going to see it in any of the footage, where basically Dracula turns Death into a giant scythe and then slams like the center of this arena, and this like giant explosion comes out that like fucking insta kills you if it touches you. But it's pretty easy to dodge. You just stay to the side of the screen and it's not going to hit you. Anyway, yeah, the scythe attack. So usually, like, what I want to do there is I want to Grand Cross, but I want to be close enough to them so that Grand Cross hits them, but not so close so that when Dracula summons the fireballs and, like, throws his arm out that it actually hits me. And there it was, like, perfect. I was at, like, the perfect distance, just close enough to hit them and just far away enough not to get hit by Dracula's hand. So that was actually, like, a perfectly handled attack right there. And now, fuck. Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. Damn it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember what exactly went wrong there. I think maybe I just panicked, or I just like didn't. Maybe I just didn't react fast enough. I mean, obviously I didn't react fast enough, but usually there's like a reason for that. Like I'm expecting him to do something else, or like I think he's going to do something else, or I'm like thinking about something else, but I don't remember what exactly happened there to cause that. And the reason that I'm mostly going to be fighting him with the whip here is because I'm saving the cross for that attack with the spikes that come in at you. That's especially galling because no damaging True Dracula on Richter is way easier than doing it on Maria, because he has the super jump and he can super jump over that attack. And I swapped to Maria here actually for the same reason I swapped to Maria during the poison wheel attack and the Bronner fight, because during that like fire rain attack, it's really easy to accidentally walk forward into them. And Maria, because she walks a little bit more slowly than Richter, you have more control over her, so the chances of that happening are much lower. Yeah, it's a tricky thing because I always talk about resource efficiency in Castlevania, where like you want to use everything you possibly can. But the thing about the magic meter in Richter mode is that when you're playing as Richter, it regenerates so slowly that like it's tough to both make full use of it against Dracula and also make sure you have like a safe amount handy for the spike attack. So I'm gonna probably be ending the fight with like half mana or something. Okay, there were a lot of things that he could have done there that could have been very bad, but he did something that was very good instead. Okay. Yeah, when he corners you like that, that's kind of the nightmare scenario. Is when the fire rain attack pushes you into a corner. Because if he really wants to, he can just be a huge dick and keep attacking you in there. Which actually is what happened to me in the Maria mode footage, but I was fucking ready for it. So there's Dracula defeated. Turned to stone, like at the end of Super Castlevania 4. Portrait of Ruin. Portrait of Ruin. Portrait of Ruin. How funny would I legit for a second there I actually contemplated just doing nothing but saying Portrait of Ruin over and over again for the last 3 minutes of this video. Because statistics indicate that probably only 2 people will ever actually get to the end of this video. So it would be a nice little treat for those 2 people. By the way, I don't really know, so people are going to go by in the credits here, and I don't know who they all are, because I recognize some of them, but then I don't recognize some other ones. That guy's name is Yude Egg. Well, he's off the screen now, but... So, how would I rank Richter mode among the many alternate modes present in Castlevania? Well, I feel like I've said this before, but if you skip the Nest of Evil, boy oh boy does it improve the game. And you might be thinking, I guess I should address this. You might be thinking, Shovitar, you fucking whiner, if the Double Frankenstein room and the Nest of Evil is so terrible, why don't you just skip it? Why don't you just take your own advice? Why don't you just, you know, because I used to try to get 100% or 1000% map completion for these games, for these runs. But then I would complain, like, oh, getting 100% map completion is annoying. But then I realized with Portrait of Ruin, like, if there's no direct incentive to get 100% map completion, or 1000% as it's measured in Portrait of Ruin, then why do it? And so I stopped doing it. Why don't I do something similar for the Nest of Evil? Because the Nest of Evil actually has some really interesting combat in it. And after the Double Frankenstein fight, like that doppelganger fight, that fight between Maria and the Richter doppelganger, that was like learning that little pattern and like learning how to maximize those like damage phases was actually really fun and really cool. And I do think that the Trevor Grant Sypha fight, it's a little bit frustrating in that there are elements that I feel like I don't always know what Trevor's going to do. But other than that, there are some really interesting decisions you have to make with like positioning and how you react to where they are, and fighting Abaddon on Maria is actually pretty fun. Fighting Zephyr is always fun, although it's occasionally frustrating. But Zephyr is like a really action-packed, like really fun boss fight. Really, very punishing, very stringent, very rewarding of careful planning and knowledge. So there are things in the Nest of Evil that I think are fun. But there's just this there's this tumor just like sitting in the middle of it festering. And that's why I didn't skip the whole thing, because I felt like there are things about this area that I think are cool, that I think are interesting, that I think are worth showcasing, and I'm just going to do what I can to get around this one part. So that's Portrait of Ruin, that's Richter mode. I'll be doing Order of Ecclesia next, although I don't know when exactly that's going to be. Hopefully this won't be another, 2-week break, but I don't know, man. We'll see what's going to happen. I'm very glad you guys are still sticking with me and still watching these videos. Keep on Earth rocking, and I'll see you at some point in the future. In the future, events